A 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, hello.
Serious rock talk back on the dial, traveling at a speed at 33 1/3 RPMs, where the vinyl will bring you to a new listening destination. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Kennedy, and with me, a man who's no stranger to the town of Kingston, Ontario, which is home of Dan Aykroyd, Bryan Adams, the Tragically Hip, and his old friend Walter Franchi.
Dr. Ian Clarke, also the former penitentiary, too. What can I say?
So, Ian, today I want to start off with a quote.
Sure.
Before we get into the meat of it all.
First of all, what's the whole subject today?
Canadian rock we stand on
All right.
for thee.
For thee. All
For
right.
thee. So, Ian, I want to read this quote to you.
Sure, go ahead.
It was in Ottawa. We would go to clubs, and the new wave and punk music, they weren't playing much of it. It was still pretty much disco and heavy rock. Every time they'd play a punk or new wave song, we'd start dancing and pogoing. We usually get kicked off the dance floor and thrown out of the club by the bouncers or told by management to tone it down. So I went home and I want to tell people, don't let these bouncers say we can't dance to new wave if we want to. You know who said that quote?
I do. Justin Trudeau.
Close. Ivan Dorschuk.
Never heard of him. What's his other name?
He's the lead singer of Men Without Hats.
Yeah. From Montreal.
Correct. So I figured I would start off with that because for those of you that know, Ian kind of grinds a little bit when he hears this band because I guess he just wants to know what do they stand for.
What, Men Without what? Oh, hats, right. I thought it was something else.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's right. So let me lead it off here with some Canadian rock.
Here we go. Canadian rock.
While the origins of rock and roll could be traced to the United States during the 1950s, the genre soon crossed the Atlantic and was transformed by British artists, leading to the iconic British invasion of the 1960s. However, this narrative often overlooks the rich history of Canadian rock music that unfolded during this same period. Over the years, a vast array of innovative Canadian artists and bands have made invaluable contributions to the evolution of rock and roll. From coast to coast, these musicians have left an indelible mark on the genre, shaping its sound and culture in profound ways. The history deserves to be highlighted as Canada has long been a hotbed of classic rock talent. Bands like The Guess Who, Rush, Neil Young, Loverboy, Bryan Adams, and the Tragically Hip from coast to coast showcase a diverse range of Canadian rock excellence. These artists not only contributed invaluable music, but also added a unique Canadian twist to the global rock narrative. So as we stand on guard for Canadian classic rock, let's celebrate the unsung heroes who rock the Great White North with their talent and passion. Prior to American Bill Haley's revolutionary Comet Clock chart topper, Canada had already set itself up to usher in the rock and roll era with its R&B group, the Four Lads. Ian, you remember them?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Following suit were the Crew Cuts with their 1954 hit, Shaboom, Shaboom, Sha-la-la-la-la, Shaboom, and the Penguins, Earth Angel, Earth Angel, and the Diamonds, who had a huge hit with Little Darling.
Great songs.
Very good songs. These three Toronto-based quartets launched the rock era in Canada by converting some American R&B tunes into rock and by creating some original selections of their own. With all this activity in the early to mid-1950s, Canadians would never have believed what was to happen in 1957. Their first Anglophone international pop superstar arrived from within the nation's capital. He released a single that rocketed up to the number 1 on both sides of the Atlantic and became the second best-selling single of all time after Bing Crosby's I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas. He was Canada's first real teen idol, scored several more chart toppers in the late 50s, became a millionaire while still a minor, switched from rock to adult contemporary in the 60s, wrote the theme for The Tonight Show, composed a big hit for Tom Jones, foiled Frank Sinatra's plan of an early retirement by writing his signature song, and rekindled his own singing career with several chart toppers in the 70s. To date, he has written some 400 songs. He should be regarded as the godfather of Canadian pop, and his name is Paul Anka.
Yep.
Who is cousins of
Don Corleone.
Andy Kim.
Andy Kim.
First cousins of Andy Kim.
There you go.
Yes, they are both Lebanese descent. The founding forefathers of Canadian classic rock music laid the groundwork for the generation of musicians to come, paving the way with their immense talent, creativity, and musical innovation. Leonard Cohen's poetic lyrics and distinctive baritone voice made him one of the most influential singer-songwriters of his era. Joni Mitchell, with her soaring vocals and open-tuned guitar style, redefined the role of women in music through her vulnerability, raw and strikingly honest songs like Both Sides Now and Big Yellow Taxi. Gordon Lightfoot's rich folk sound and storytelling through songs like The Wreck of Edmund Fitzgerald, not The Rack of Edna Fitzgerald, as Stephen Wheeler would say, made a pillar of Canadian music. The miraculous Neil Young, both with Buffalo Springfield and his long solo career, became the godfather of grunge with his gritty guitar work and nasally vocals on songs like Heart of Gold and Rocking in a Free World. Ronnie Hawkins, though American-born, became a key figure in Canada after moving there in 1958. Ian, you call him the Hawk.
Oh, the Hawk. The Hawk's Nest. It's Yonge Street.
That's right, forming the backing band The Hawks and mentoring many great Canadian artists. Steppenwolf, led by German-born frontman John Kay after he moved to Canada, scored huge late in the 60s like Born to Be Wild and Magic Carpet Ride. The rock and roll group, Ian, the Beaumarks, had a big hit in 1960 with Clap Your Hands, Clap Your Hands. And that helped Canada achieve some musical map, as we like to say.
Sure.
Roots rock group The Band, which began as the Hawks, backing Ronnie Hawkins, featured 4 Canadians and made an indelible mark with their earthy sound and influential albums in the late 60s and early 70s. And of course, Stompin' Tom Connors celebrated the working class and small town life of Canada through his energetic folk songs like Bud the Spud and the Hockey Song. These visionary artists set the stage and provided inspiration for the explosion of Canadian rock music that would follow in their footsteps and make Canada a powerhouse of musical talent for decades to come. The post-grunge era in Canada marked a pivotal period in the nation's musical history, giving rise to a diverse array of talented artists who left an indelible mark on the global music scene, building upon the foundation laid by trailing new wave acts like Platinum Blonde, who had previously established Canada's presence in the international spotlight. This generation of musicians took the raw energy and introspective lyrics of grunge and infused it with their own unique sensibilities. From the angst-ridden punk rock scene of Sum 41 and Billy Talent to the soulful alternative rock of I Mother Earth and Our Lady Peace, Canadian post-grunge bands showcased an impressive range of styles and sounds. Alanis Morissette emerged as a powerhouse songwriter in her professional and unflinchingly honest lyrics, resonating with audiences worldwide and earning numerous accolades, including multiple Grammy Awards. Avril Lavigne's pop-punk anthems and rebellious attitude captured the hearts of generation, while Simple Plan flew the flag for Quebec, proving that language is no barrier to success in the post-grunge landscape. The musical revolution extended from coast to coast, with British Columbia producing its own crop of notable acts. Econoline Crush and Default delivered hard-hitting rock, while Moist and the Payolas showcased a more atmospheric new wave influenced sound. Even hip-hop found its place in the post-grunge era, with Vancouver's Swollen Members achieving critical acclaim and commercial success. The impact of these artists cannot be overstated, as they only dominated the Canadian charts, but also made significant inroads internationally, cementing Canada's reputation as a breeding ground for musical innovation and creativity. But before all this fun stuff happened, Ian, there's something magical that happened at Yorkville?
Well, Yorkville is a region in Toronto. In the 1960s, it was called a cultural hotspot. It was really the Canadian equivalent of Haight-Ashbury and Greenwich Village in New York City. Same kind of thing. Lots of clubs, lots of coffee houses, and eventually lots of hippies. The two big coffee houses at the beginning were the 71 Club and the Half Beat. The reason they really got going, you can say this, you can say that. What it was is in Ontario at that time, you had to be 21 years old to drink alcohol. And so what the coffee houses did is serve coffee. And there were chessboards set up, and there were backgammon, this and that. And these were folk music establishments. That's the way the coffee houses started in Yorkville, right? But by the late 1960s, then you had the electric music. You had psychedelia come in, and you had a lot of drugs. And I'll talk about that later. At its peak, Yorkville had about 40 coffee houses and clubs, which is a lot. It's not a big area in Toronto. They had the Cafe El Patio at 119 Yorkville. The Poppers started there, if you heard that group. They held future members of a band called Lighthouse, which is a great band. And parts of Janis Joplin's Full Tilt Boogie Band also played there. Small world, eh? There was the Village Corner at 174 Avenue Road, where Ian and Sylvia Tyson played. That's where they got their start, right? But the most famous club of all was called the Riverboat, and I can remember seeing ads in the Toronto Star for the Riverboat. It was at 134 Yorkville. They opened in October of 64, and it became very prestigious. It was at street level. The club seated just 120 people. They were in these red booths, all crowded around the stage, very intimate. And it attracted people like Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, Jeff Buckley, Richie Havens was there, the guy who opened Woodstock, Junior Wells, John Prine, Simon and Garfunkel, I heard of them, Ramblin' Jack Elliott, Arlo Guthrie, Buddy Guy, Chris Christopherson, John Lee Hooker, Tim Hardin, Jerry Jeff Walker, Janice Ian, Odetta, Seals and Cross, and James Taylor, heard of him too. They all played the Riverboat. Eric Clapton stopped by when he was with Cream to watch the acts. But most significantly, and in terms of what we're speaking about in this episode, it started the careers of people like Gordon Lightfoot, Joni Mitchell, Bruce Cockburn, Murray McLaughlin, Dan Hill. They started at the Riverboat. Lightfoot said, quote, "For me, the Riverboat was my first taste of the big time. It indicated that you must really be going somewhere." And this is a bit of trivia. Joni Mitchell performed her song, Both Sides Now, for the first time at the Riverboat. Neil Young showed up. He was part of the Hoot Nights, which are hootenanny, anyone can get on stage. And he, after being in a band with Rick James of all people, he went south to Los Angeles and hooked up with Stephen Stills. Now, I said that these places really got going to coffee shops because of the drinking age. Well, in 1978, the drinking age went down, which I can remember. And so the coffee shops, that was the final nail in the coffin. And the Riverboat closed in June of 78. Now, when you read these kind of buffed, polished recounts of Yorkville, they don't tend to get into the issue of drugs, which is a big problem in the late 60s at Yorkville. The police were always there, a lot of hippies, and it wasn't a very good scene. But for a brief shining moment, Yorkville had the attention of the world in many ways.
And it's a very important part, Ian, in Canadian music, you would say?
Yeah, because of folk. I got to stress this. I know John Kay, he went on to Steppenwolf, etc. It was really a folk scene. And so the people like I mentioned, Gordon Lightfoot, Joni Mitchell, whoever, they started there. So no Riverboat, no, you wouldn't get these guys.
So the who's who of Canadian folk, they all went there.
They went there.
So now what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go from province to province and just list basically the top kind of whatever fits into rock.
Sure.
And, because there's a lot of good Canadian stuff out there. But so for those of you that were expecting to hear anything about Justin Bieber or The Weeknd or Drake, it's not happening.
Not right now.
Not right now.
No.
So, Quebec, the province where I'm from, good old Montreal, the boy in the box, Ian, Corey Hart.
The guy that wears sunglasses in the shade, that guy?
And he'll never surrender.
He'll never surrender.
So, Corey Hart, obviously, he was young when he started.
Yeah, he was young.
It was the mid-'80s, and he basically became a pop icon on MTV in the MTV era.
No, he was a cute kid. Yeah, he did well.
He did well. We'll get to someone even way cuter, Sass Jordan.
Yeah, she's definitely cuter than Corey Hart.
I would say so.
I think so.
So, Sass Jordan, Ian, what do you know about Sass?
Been around forever, played with a lot of people, gave us, pretty well, a start to your buddy, the drummer.
Taylor Hawkins?
Taylor Hawkins.
I know. Taylor Hawkins actually has a huge Canadian relationship with starting off with Sass Jordan, then Alanis Morissette, and then moving on towards Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters. And Sass Jordan, believe it or not, at the time, whenever Van Halen was in between singers, they were looking at having her. That would have been so awesome. As a huge Van Halen fan, obviously Roth is Roth, and nothing will beat that, but I would have been very okay with Sass Jordan filling in.
Very strange. That would have been interesting, eh?
She's got the voice.
She's got the voice and the presence, but who knows?
So the next one here on the Quebec list, one I truly love, who's just as cute as Sass Jordan, Melissa Hofdemar. A lot of people are wondering, well, Melissa Hofdemar, yeah, you know her from Hole. She did a stint with Smashing Pumpkins. Obviously worked with Billy Corgan in the grunge scene. Very big in the 90s all the way into the early 2000s. So she is very well known for being one of the bass players and a very good friend to Courtney Love, believe it or not. So she's been around the circle of grunge, and now she's really focusing still on her own more solo work. So that is one of the artists that I truly like that came from Quebec. Another one that came from Quebec, you guys know of him as Andy Kim. The real name is Andreas Joachim, who is the first cousin of Paul Anka. And to me, I've always considered Andy Kim as Canada's version of Neil Diamond. Wrote for a fictional band called the Archies.
True.
Neil Diamond wrote at the time for a TV band, the Monkees, which then they started performing. I don't even know if they played their own instruments at the time, Ian. Do you know?
Well, yeah, initially, no.
Initially, no, yeah. And Andy Kim's been around forever, and I think he's still going.
He's still going, I know. It's incredible.
And the next one, who's of Italian extraction, but Ian knows him more than me, Gino Vanelli.
Gino Vanelli, great. Really in the 70s, well, I guess it was his peak, maybe the early 80s. I just want to say Gino Vanelli had one of the best, maybe still has one of the best rock voices around. And I don't know why he didn't get bigger, so to speak, but he was great. Go listen to Powerful People. It's a great album, and he has a wonderful voice, and he's a good songwriter. Who knows? Mysteries.
Very mystery. Next province we're going to go, so we went from Quebec. We're just going to go a little bit in the East Coast. We're going to take a little trip down to Charlottetown, PEI.
Right.
And the only thing I got is Haywire, Ian. That's...
Yeah, what about... Tell me about Haywire.
Well, they're basically homegrown because they went through a Q104 homegrown contest, and that's how they got noticed for Labatt's Battle of the Bands. And we had to go to St. John, actually, to do it. And they won $10,000.
Good for them.
That's it.
Good for Haywire.
New Brunswick. I'm going to say Stompin' Tom Connors, and Ian knows him better than I do. Stompin' Tom.
Well, I do know he's buried in Peterborough, Ontario. There you go. Stompin' Tom was kind of a rowdy folk singer. Really, that's what he was. And he's loved to, I don't know, almost exploit his Canadian roots. Real kind of salt-of-the-earth guy. And for a while, he was very famous.
The next one from New Brunswick is Rock Voisin. For years, I thought he was a Quebecer, but good old Stephen Wheeler had corrected me and told me no, he's from Edmundston, New Brunswick.
There you go.
And he got his big break in '89 with his album Hélène. And then he ended up going into English songs, and he got a little bit more recognition there. So obviously he's still going. He wanted to be a hockey player. That never happened.
No.
But he did star in a Quebec series called Lancé Compte, which is kind of like a mini series of Slapshot, if you were to translate it into English. And that's pretty well it. The next province, we're going to Ian's favorite province in the Maritimes, Nova Scotia.
Hey, don't knock the Canada's Ocean Playground.
That's where they call it touring.
That's where you tour.
That's where you tour. So we have the iconic Canadian rock band hailing from Halifax, Sloan. And Sloan, they called them the Navy Blues Rock of Canada. That's the kind of name they had given to them. It was a weird name that they gave them.
Yeah, that's weird.
It is. So they're pretty well legendary in Halifax, in Nova Scotia. They obviously drew inspiration from the likes of the Beatles, Kiss, and the Velvet Underground. Ian, that's your little favorite band. Right?
Sure.
Velvet Underground.
Love the Velvets.
And then the next band out of Nova Scotia is April Wine, which is a legendary Canadian rock band from the rugged shores of Nova Scotia.
Still going.
Still going. Unfortunately, Miles Goodwin passed away.
Just recently.
And did you guys know that their most iconic triumphs was their rendition of Bad Side of the Moon, which is a song originally penned by the illustrious duo of Bernie Taupin and Elton John?
I know, it's very strange. That's real trivia.
Yeah, and that's Elton John's own he said his own version failed to resonate with himself, and it was the visionary frontman Miles Goodwin who recognized the untapped potential of this hidden gem. And it was on the B-side of Border Song.
I know. It's a great bit of trivia, ladies and germs. That'll be just dug up there. Yeah, that's true.
Because Border Song, I think Aretha Franklin did it. Yeah, Aretha Franklin did.
She covered that?
She covered it. And I saw Elton John live, and he had said that he felt, I guess he's being honest, that she did a better version.
That can happen, right?
But they really, they nailed Bad Side of the Moon.
Okay.
They nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just bizarre success, right?
It is. And they're such an underrated band. So, Newfoundland. Ian, Great Big Sea?
Yeah, Great Big Sea. People say that. It's hard to think of what else Newfoundland's produce in rock. And I'm not knocking Newfoundland. I mean, good for them. Yeah, Great Big Sea. It's, who's the lead singer again?
Oh, Alan Doyle.
Yeah, he does other stuff, too. Always around, real personality.
Yeah, so basically the band is mainly Alan Doyle and Sean McCann.
Yeah.
Now they're still performing, but they kind of want to go.
Yeah.
Just
he does his own projects.
So he does. Yeah, he does his own projects. So that's what we got for Newfoundland, Labrador, Labrador.
Labrador.
And now we're moving to the birth province of good old Dr. Clarke, Ontario.
Keep it beautiful.
So we, on the license plate. That's true. Keep it beautiful. We'll get to the other province after the one that you like. So, Bare Naked Ladies, obviously, they're hailing from Scarborough.
Beautiful Scarborough.
And they've made, they've been known on the music scene for a while. And the reason how they met was basically Ed Robertson and Stephen Page at a Peter Gabriel concert during high school. That's how they met. And then they discovered they decided to.
I think they got discovered. They did. City TV, I think it was on Queen Street, used to have this booth out front.
Yeah, the Much Music.
Yeah, I remember walking past it a million times. And they jammed in, and they sang something. Someone noticed, I don't know who, and that was their first step up.
And they thought of their name, funny enough, Bare Naked Ladies, at a Bob Dylan concert, and they were having a burger at Harvey's after the concert. This is how Canadian could this be?
I mean, really, those guys love food, too.
They do. Next one, obviously, Bryan Adams, the most legendary Canadian singer, songwriter, and guitarist. That's just my opinion. Everyone knows him and his remarkable albums, Cuts Like a Knife and Reckless, which were co-written while he had some help with Jim Valance, who had met at Long and McQuaid. Isn't that interesting, Ian? Good old Long and McQuaid.
Thank God. A lot of guys met at Long and McQuaid.
So Jim Valance, as people know, that's where he met Bryan Adams in Vancouver, and I believe these two formed a creative partnership and friendship that has been compared to legendary songwriting duo Bernie Taupin and Elton John. I have to say that. Ian's looking at me like,
stop the pain.
Avril Lavigne, probably, to me, from Napanee, Ontario, one of the most talented girls out of Napanee, Ontario.
Nicely put.
I don't know who else came out of Napanee.
Nobody.
But she came out with her skater punk.
Skater boy, yeah.
Skater boy look. She's still performing. Saw her in concert She's fantastic. Still has a great voice. She's a tiny little person, though.
Oh, she could fit in my pocket.
We were 6 rows behind, like 6 rows away, and I'm like, man, she's small.
Yeah, she's tiny.
She's tiny. Next, legendary Canadian progressive rock band Rush. I am like so into Rush these days, and this is what happens when you learn how to play musical instruments. In the past, I always said, well, what's the deal with Rush? Why is everyone talk about Rush? Well, how can you not talk about Rush? You know, with their songs Fly By Night and Spirit of the Radio, stuff that was written by the professor Neil Peart. Their first drummer, John Rutsey, unfortunately ended up having diabetes and couldn't travel. This is why Neil Peart came in. Again, this is a band that had no in-band fighting, no drama. They start off with 3 guys, and they still continue with 3 guys after one guy got ill, unfortunately. So I love this band. Obviously, you know, they've inspired a lot of icons like Eddie Van Halen, Dave Grohl, Cliff Burton, and Steve Harris. So these are just some big names that you can't disagree with. Next one here is Tragically Hip, obviously another band hailing out of Kingston. Give credit to Tragically Hip. They got famous right through Canada and a couple of the northern states. They didn't really cross over to the States in that much.
They tried, didn't work. Yeah.
And they just had a couple of northern states like Michigan, Illinois, Maine.
Yeah.
You know, so this is something that I always feel that they're one of those great bands. The next one is obviously a legendary figure of folk rock, and to me, the godfather of grunge is Neil Young. He is one of those lumineers, like Ian had said, came out of the Yorkville area.
Yeah, he came out of Yorkville. Then I think he was born in Toronto, if I'm right.
He is born in Toronto, but I think he grew up in Winnipeg.
And grew up in Winnipeg. His father was Scott Young. Scott Young, I remember you used to read him. He was a sports journalist. He wrote for the Globe. He was really good.
You know, like songwriting prowess shown through early on with protest songs like Ohio, famously written with just like an hour walking through the woods. His Canadian roots do run deep with stints in Toronto and in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
But his impact extends far beyond his home country. Many will argue Canadian music should be simply renamed Neil Young in honor of his unparalleled contributions.
Could you name 5 people?
That said this?
Yeah, you said many.
Many, yeah.
Okay, name 5.
Me. I'm the one. So Ian looked over the notes and says, really? Many, eh?
Many, eh? There are those who believe. Really? Who are those?
So many of those do believe
he should be...
The Canadian music should be renamed Neil Young.
Unless you get hit in the head with a piece of mining equipment. I mean,
okay, the other person that said it too was Brent from Crosstown Traffic.
Okay,
he was with me.
That's 2 guys.
Okay, and maybe Stephen Wheeler might agree.
No, okay, you're really, you're talking, no.
Me and my dad. No, my dad.
Okay, then we got 4 guys. All right.
No, but in the words of my buddy Brent from Crosstown, he had said that Neil Young today has carte blanche. He could just do what the hell he wants. It's okay.
Well, yeah, I agree with him. I mean, he's still around. It was good for him.
But now we're going to head to little Ian's favorite bands. Ian, Kim Mitchell and Max Webster.
Kim Mitchell and Max Webster. Okay. Reading my notes here. Came to prominence in the 1970s. Lead guitarist, lead vocalist for Max Webster. Formed in 73. Yeah. Kim Mitchell is a really good musician. He's been around forever. Like when I go back into my childhood, he was there. He had stuff like, was he Party in the Patio, I think?
Oh, Patio Lanterns.
Patio Lanterns.
Let's Go for a Soda because nobody hurts.
Yeah, A Million Vacations. He became a disc jockey, I think on Q107 in Toronto. He's done everything, and he's still around, and he's a talented guy. He played the Toronto club scene forever, and he's an icon that way, and he's made a great living out of Canadian music, so he's got my respect.
Next one, Ian, Honeymoon Suite.
Honeymoon Suite from Niagara. It's a pro guitar from Niagara Falls. Honeymoon Suite, those of you rather who have listened to this show for a while know I refer to these kind of Canadian bands as the boys of summer. They just kind of survive by playing small towns, make enough money during summer months to survive through the winter and then do it again. And Honeymoon Suite is one of those bands. They're like an early 80s band. 1983 did they kick off? Like they've been around forever. As far as I know, they're still around. I might be off on that.
Johnny D is still going. I don't know how many of the original members are still there, but he's there. I think he cut his hair though.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I think so. Well, Kim Mitchell, by the way, shaved his head.
Well, he had to.
He's bald now. Yeah,
He was bald.
Poor guy.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, he shaved his head. But no. Oh, there's one that you would like to read.
Me?
Sure.
No, I want you to do it
Okay.
because you know her better than I do.
I don't really. Okay, we're gonna talk about Lee Aaron here.
Metal girl.
She's metal. She's a metal woman in Canada. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. But she's made a great career
And
out
she
of it.
still looks fantastic for her age.
She's from Belleville. Go figure. And like I think her first release was in 1984, and she's still going. There is something about her. She got produced by Bob Ezrin. Everybody knows Bob Ezrin, right? Alice Cooper, Pink Floyd, and Peter Coleman. Yeah, he did Blondie and Pat Benatar. She's still around. She released something within the last 2 years, I remember. So power to Lee Aaron. Next up is a band called The Band. Now, the band began, as we mentioned earlier, as Ronnie Hawkins' backing band for Canadians and one American, Levon Helms from beautiful Arkansas.
He's from Arkansas too.
Yeah, Levon Helm is. Yeah.
So him and Ronnie. Both from
Ronnie.
Arkansas. Okay.
And yeah, what can you say? Everybody knows the band. Everybody knows The Weight. Everybody knows Up on Cripple Creek. Everybody knows The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down.
That's the best song.
Yeah, and they were big buddies with Bob Dylan. In fact, they were Dylan's backing band. And yeah, they were so ridiculously talented. They had 2 great singers, 3 maybe. They're outstanding musicians and stars of one of the best rock documentaries ever made, The Last Waltz, directed, I think, in about 78 by Martin Scorsese. So essentially a Canadian band.
Wait, we just lost Garth Hudson, the last member.
I know.
Yeah. Who's the other 2 singers?
Garth didn't sing. Well, there was Levon and Richard Manuel.
Oh, he sang? Okay.
Yeah, he had a deep voice. And Rick Danko, who had a for right now, why don't you put us on pause and go listen to Rick Danko sing It Makes No Difference at The Last Waltz. You will never get a better vocal performance than that.
Is he the one that sang the verse, Crazy Chester Followed Me?
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
Yeah. He just nailed it. He was just from north of Toronto and kind of lucked into it. So there you go. I think the Tea Party might be coming up.
The Tea Party. Where do they hail from? Windsor.
Beautiful Windsor, Ontario.
Beautiful Windsor. And the thing is, they emerged onto the music scene in the early 90s with a unique and captivating sound that blended elements of rock, blues, and progressive rock.
Yeah.
Alongside with a little bit of Middle Eastern music. Founded by Jeff Martin, Stuart Chatwood, and Jeff Burrows again. This is a trio band, right? So I kind of like trio bands because it's pretty cool. They got their little distinctive guitar playing style. So whenever Jeff Martin came out of on the music scene, he emulated Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page with that cello.
Yeah, I know.
And his deep resonance. Like he kind of looked like friggin' Jim Morrison with his poetic look and the hair and all that.
As a sidebar, we should do a show sometime on trios because, like Rush, right? They're very different. The sound when you have 3 people, it's remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, Tea Party, Rush, Bee Gees, Nirvana.
Oh, good point.
Beastie
Bee Gees,
Boys.
yeah. 3 people.
Green Day, Blink-182. You know what? We're gonna do a show on it.
We'll do a show on it. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Next up on the Ontario list is rap, and you're like, what? Yeah, Maestro Fresh Wes, born Wesley Williams in Toronto, pioneering figure in Canadian hip hop who break down the barriers and paved the way for future generations of rappers in the Great White North. 1989 debut album Symphony in Effect, propelled by groundbreaking hit single Let Your Backbone Slide. Like, how can you not love that song? I still jam to that when I work out or if I'm in my car doing my old Italian machismo look, but I have no mullet, unfortunately. Yeah, I know. And then you're wondering, well, Kennedy, you got reggae? Yeah, Darren O'Brien, who goes by Snow. And people are like, what? An Irish reggae guy? Well, he grew up in Jamaica, and he's got some roots to it. So Informer, everyone knows Snow. Like, that's just groundbreaking. Where else do you get that?
True.
So now we're going to Manitoba, which it says friendly Manitoba.
It really is friendly.
And Ian, this is a band I think you truly, truly like.
What's that?
Well, there's 2 of them back to back.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Who would it be? Oh, the Guess Who? Yeah, then those guys. Oh, Burton Cummings and the Guess Who. I think they started with the Chad Mitchell Trio or something. Anyway, they morphed into the Guess Who, if I got my facts right. Yeah, great songwriters, Burton Cummings and Taking Care. Yeah,
Randy Bachman.
Randy Bachman. Yeah, this is a great 60s band, 70s band out of Winnipeg. And in fact, so famous that they actually named a theater after Burton Cummings. You gotta wonder. So, a great band, on again, off again, mostly off again. Pick up their greatest hits. There's not a weak song on it. Their biggest song was American Woman. Everybody knows that. I think that's from '69.
But you gotta, it has to be Bachman Cummings. After that,
It doesn't really work.
no, it doesn't.
They wrote these songs, most of them on the piano, which is strangely. And this leads me into the next one, Bachman Turner Overdrive. Yeah, so when he left the Guess Who, Randy Bachman is a Mormon. He didn't like all the lifestyle, so to speak, of a rock and roll star. So he formed his own band a little bit later. Randy Bachman is a very good guitar player. He is just underrated. Anyway, they had 2 or 3 strong albums. One in particular, I think.
Oh, Not Fragile.
Not Fragile.
Yeah.
Everybody had Not Fragile.
I have it.
Do you?
Yeah, it's a good album.
It's a good album.
I
So,
like BTO.
oh, there's an interesting one for you to talk about.
Oh, that's right. And before we finish off with BTO, you remember Ian when his guitar finally resurfaced after 47?
I know. And in Canada, it was like front page news in the media. And Kennedy and I thought, well, so they found his guitar in Japan or something. So it's not really a story. And that's great. We'll have a good time with the guitar, and life goes on. It's not like finding like a lost Beatles demo.
No, it was his guitar.
What?
It was stolen.
It was stolen, and it made its way back to him, and it's kind of touching. But I don't really think it was a front page.
Well, yeah, it wasn't really worth a front page, but in Canada, they did it 2 years in a row.
I know. They went on and on and on about it.
So it was good because it gave us material for a New Year's Eve show where Ian ranted twice.
It's actually true. I admit it.
Next is, yes, the Crash Test Dummies. They're considered a Canadian folk rock band, I guess.
I guess.
I like Brad Roberts.
He's unique with that voice, I'll say that.
He's got that baritone.
Oh, he's bottom of the well.
And then he's got Ellen Reid, back in the day, and she had a great voice. That whole Peter Pumpkinhead song.
Yeah.
That was something. That's a good rock. That's actually a good rock song.
I like Superman. That was great.
Yeah, Superman was good too. Next one, I love this guy a lot. I think he's awesome. From Lynn Lake, Manitoba, Tom Cochrane.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's just salt of the earth, right?
His solo album, Mad Mad World, is fantastic.
Yeah.
Fronted Red Rider for years. Still has Red Rider.
He toured constantly. Even after Life is a Highway broke. The guy's a real worker.
He is.
He's the real thing.
Next, we're moving to good old Saskatchewan. I've never been. Apparently, I heard there's really not much going on there, Ian. Is that true?
It is a party, man. Wall-to-wall disco. No, I don't, sure.
You got the Sheepdogs, Canadian rock band, guitarist Ricky Paquette from here in the region, in the Ottawa-Gatineau region. They've come on to the rock scene pretty hard since 2006, and I'm actually glad that there's still some Canadian rock, and the Sheepdogs is one of them.
Yeah, really.
And then another band that is good Canadian rock, Ian, Streetheart. So they were formed in 77.
77. Are they still going? You and I were early before we got in this episode. We're trying to discuss that.
They kind of, 2 members morphed into Loverboy, which we'll get to.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I just, anyway, they had some huge, for Canada, some huge albums.
So what do they have here? They got Under My Thumb, Here Comes the Night, Hollywood, Tin Soldier, ring a bell, Ian?
No. There is one that I know called Tin Soldier, yeah.
One Kind of Love Is This, One More Time, and Snow White, and then Look Into Your Eyes. This is what they kind of put as their top hit songs.
Sure.
The next one I put here from Saskatchewan, believe it or not, Colin James.
Great guitar player.
Great guitar player, great singer. Seen him 3 times.
Okay.
And it just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, he is really good.
He's got about 18 studio albums.
I didn't know that. Wow. That's a lot.
Easy blues, kind of.
Yeah, bluesy, yeah. I'd say.
So, next 2 bands we're going right to Alberta, and Dr. Clarke is going to talk about the first 2 because he knows them very well.
Oh, Stan Peters. Saw them live a few times in the 70s. They were a really good band, Sweet City Woman. They were around for quite a while, and I thought kind of like Canada's version of Grand Funk Railroad. I never understood why they didn't get more exposure, especially in the States. They're a trio and recorded 9 albums. Who knew that? But everybody knows Sweet City Woman. It was used in a lot of commercials and things.
I like that. C'est bon, c'est bon, c'est bon, c'est bon.
It was
c'est
really
bon,
good.
Bon, bon, bon.
Oh, I thought they were in the studio.
They're bilingual, I guess. One of them has to be French.
I don't think it was C'est bon.
It means it's good. It's good. It's
Yeah, it was, how about bon, 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 bon?
bon.
No, c'est bon.
C'est bon.
Min petite. Lover Boy. Okay, we mentioned Boys of Summer. In 1979, they formed. Turn Me Loose, Working for the Weekend. That's a really good song.
Oh, they're not Flock of Seagulls. No, never mind.
No, they were around forever. They had some good videos, very 70s with headbands and stuff, puffed up hair.
With the cut-off leather jackets.
Yeah, cut off jeans. Like, whatever. As far as I know, they still tour. And good on them. Oh, no, the next one are your little buddies.
Well, my little buddies, this is actually probably the greatest Canadian rock band of all time. Nothing better than
God.
Nickelback, hailing out of Hannah, Alberta. And they were known as the Village Idiots before, and then it was formed by the two brothers, Michael and Chad. And they got the name because Michael was working at a Starbucks, and every time people
I heard that. Yeah, that's good.
Here's your Nickelback, that's how it came. But hey, we know when they started off, they were doing covers of Led Zeppelin and Metallica. Chad and Mike asked their dad for $4,000 to get the record recorded.
Good for him.
Which was a 7-track EP called Hesher. And then they also did a full-length album called Curve, which was the first album they have. So they are one of my favorite bands. The next band here we got we're going right to British Columbia, Ian. That's the last province.
There's a lot of bands out of BC, yeah.
And I'm going to ask you, 5440, what do you think about that?
Around Forever, great band. I didn't know they're from BC. Never even thought about it. Interesting.
Yeah, they're from BC. They have been around for a very long time.
Does it give a start date?
Man, I want to say before at least 80,
Yeah,
but
5440, yeah.
5440. Then we got a band here. This is kind of funny. So, why I'm mentioning Randy Bachman leaves the Guess Who at its highest pinnacle, but Ian gave the reason why.
Yeah.
Took him 2 years of his own money to front and make BTO. Then he decides to leave BTO at the highest pinnacle to go produce Trooper in 1975.
They were a good band, too. This is their big hit. They had a huge
We're
hit.
here for a good time.
Not a long time,
Not a long time. And
great
Raise
band.
a Little Hell.
Yeah, I mean, these are great rock songs.
So yeah, Randy Bachman, went and good on them. I guess Trooper, they're still going.
As far as Boys of Summer, right?
Boys of Summer, and then a rock band, kind of like the same style as Default and Nickelback. You're looking at Theory of a Dead Man. They're from Delta, British Columbia.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, they've got some good hits. They've been around for a while. Santa Monica is their biggest one. And then the last band out of BC, Ian, you were talking about this earlier on the phone.
Oh, Chilliwack.
They're coming back, or they're doing an album?
I don't know I wonder where Chilliwack's from in BC. Wait a second. From Chilliwack.
Are they seriously from Chilliwack?
I think so.
Okay. Because you never know, right?
Maybe Vancouver. Okay. But Chilliwack, yeah, they've been around forever. A lot of lineup changes. Fly at Night. My Girl, Gone, Jabing. Yeah, My Girl, 1981. Like, What You Gonna Do? 1982, their biggest hit. They got popular in the States, too. Again, it's always puzzling to me why these bands can't, I don't know, almost break loose in the States. Some do. Most just don't. I don't know why. There's another show maybe for us. But yeah, Chilliwack was huge.
And
Wow.
just like that, we've gone from coast to coast.
True.
East to west, or we started
Kind
in
of.
Quebec, and we went east, and then we went all the
but
way
I go to the
back west.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I sure learned a lot.
So did I.
Who knew all this Canadian stuff? Canadians should be proud. Elbows out on the tunes.
And I'm Kennedy saying au revoir.
And Dr. Ian Clarke, have a wonderful day.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.